Hi, this is Daryl Myatt from Keller, Texas. Today is Monday, February 14th, 2011. Let me first say Happy Valentine's Day to my beautiful bride of almost 22 years. Love you. And to everyone else, Happy Valentine's Day to you guys. Hope you have someone special and significant to celebrate it with. A lot of things going on today, so let me get right to it. This first story out of the WashingtonPost.com says that Egypt's generals imposed martial law. This out of Cairo. Egypt's generals imposed martial law on Sunday, dissolving parliament and suspending the constitution, moves that many of the protesters who helped topple President Hosni Mubarak said were necessary to excise a rotten form of government. The sweeping actions appeared to have their desired effect of calming the national mood. Under a celebratory facade, Egypt has remained on edge since Mubarak was forced to abdicate Friday as uncertainty grew over the revolution's next stages. In a written communique, the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, led by Field Marshal Mohammed Tantawi, said the military rule was temporary and would last until elections are held, possibly as soon as 6 months from now. A new set of guiding laws will be drafted by an appointed committee and made subject to a referendum, the military chief said. The parliament disbanded by the military had been a rubber-stamp body dominated by ruling party members who prevailed in rigged November elections. The constitution had also been skewed heavily in favor of Mubarak's regime. So currently the army is running Egypt, and they'll probably have elections possibly within 6 months. We'll need to keep an eye on that to see what's going on with that. Here's something out of IsraelNationalNews.com. It says the IMRA analyst says that the U.S. omits peace with Israel. Two Western powers comment on Mubarak's resignation. Germany's Merkel calls for continued efforts for peace with Israel, while Obama does not. Political affairs analyst Dr. Aaron Lerner, head of Independent Media Review and Analysis, IMRA, and you can check that at www.imra.org.il, notes that blatant contrast between Obama's comments and Angela Merkel of Germany, calling it a cause for serious concern. Lerner writes that German Chancellor Merkel prepared a short, two-paragraph comment on the developments in Egypt and concluded it with a call for continued Egyptian efforts on behalf of peace with Israel. We also expect future Egyptian governments to pursue peace in the Middle East so that the contracts were signed with Israel are respected and that Israel's security is guaranteed, Merkel's announcement stated. Yet Obama, in a lengthy 17-paragraph document addressing the historic changes taking place in Egypt, did not mention Israel or regional peace at all. Not once. This immediately reminded me of a passage in Matthew 7, verse 15, says, "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them." By their fruit you will recognize them. Start and see. Take a moment and think about the fruit you've seen coming from this president. This one who mocks the Bible. This one who mocks Jesus Christ. This one who bows to a Saudi king in a position of subservience. This one who says that the call to prayer in the Islamic faith is the most beautiful thing ever. And I have seen him say the Holy Quran probably a dozen times, and he recites the Quran more than the Bible ever. Watch out for this wolf in sheep's clothing, because you will know them by their fruits. I tend to go by what they do, not what they say, because, sorry, politicians lie to us all the time and smile doing it. And it gets even worse as election time gets nearer. But this is pretty obvious right here. This guy Lerner continues saying, "The very unfortunate message from Mr. Obama to the Egyptians in particular, and the Arab world in general, is that as far as he is concerned, Egypt honoring peace with Israel is at best of tertiary importance in his eyes." Okay, so it's not important at all to Obama. Why do you think that is? Well, he grew up in a Muslim family. He went to a Muslim school. You don't leave that faith without people trying to kill you. I believe he is still a Muslim. He denies Jesus Christ as the Son of God. He doesn't go to church. Every president we've ever had in the last 40 years, you always see them going to church, Bible in hand. This president does not. He used to, the Jeremiah Wright Reverend, that whole thing. Ever since then, I think he's been to church once. So, don't try to tell me he's a Christian. Because if he were, he'd be more concerned with Israel, and he'd be more concerned about his little girls knowing the truth of Jesus Christ, instead of mocking him and mocking the Bible. You'll know them by their fruits. This story out of IsraelToday.com says Israel has many concerns after Mubarak regime falls. Israel watched with muted concern over the weekend as former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak resigned after 30 years in power, and millions of Egyptians celebrated for days on the streets of Cairo, marking what they hope is the end of dictatorial rule in their country. Sorry, it's got these lips, can't do a thing with them. The region has seen this kind of thing before, and historically it has not turned out well, but Israel has more immediate worries as Egypt is concerned. First, while the peace between Israel and Egypt under Mubarak was cold, it still served to balance Israel's rivalry with Iran and mounting tensions with Turkey. As the situation stands now, there is no regional Arab superpower tipping the scales in Israel's favor. Egypt has completely lost its status in the area, while Turkey and Iran are on the way up. Former Israeli ambassador to Cairo, Zvi Mazel, told Israel's Ynet news portal, "As long as we had Mubarak, there was no void in our relations with the region. Now we're in big trouble." Yeah, Israel is keeping an eye on this Egypt thing to see who's going to come into power. And I think, as many are afraid, most likely it's going to be the Muslim Brotherhood through their man El-Baradei. Again, we need to keep an eye on this, watch what's happening. Jesus told us to watch and pray, and this is the very thing we need to watch and pray about. Okay, here's something out of Reuters. Muammar Gaddafi tells Palestinians, hey, you should revolt against Israel. Great, just what we need. Libyan leader says refugees should mass on Israel's shores. This is a time of popular revolutions, Gaddafi said, accusing the Western powers of being enemies of Islam. I have to say I'm an enemy of Islam. Okay, just have to say. Doesn't mean I hate them. I still pray for them. I pray they come to know the truth of Jesus Christ because they deny His truth. This out of Tripoli. Palestinian refugees should capitalize on the wave of popular revolts in the Middle East by massing peacefully on the borders of Israel until it gives in to their demands, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi said yesterday. He is respected in many parts of the Arab world for his uncompromising criticism of Israel and Arab leaders who have dealings with the Jewish state, though some people in the region dismiss his initiatives as unrealistic. So he's sitting here saying you should take fleets of boats to the Palestinians and load them up with Palestinians and wait by the Palestinian shores till the problem is resolved. I'm sorry, I'm looking on my globe. I don't see any place that says Palestine. Not recognized. It says we need to create a problem for the world. Create a problem for the world. Reminds me of a passage saying Jerusalem will become a burdensome stone for all the world, and all who try to move it will be broken. Anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of the story because I can only take so much of someone with so much hatred. Here's something out of France24.com. It says Israeli army is ready for all eventualities. The Israeli military is ready for all eventualities as the Arab and Muslim world undergoes an earthquake. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today, just days after Egypt's regime collapsed. He says an earthquake is shaking the whole Arab world and a large part of the Muslim world, and we don't know yet how these things will turn out, the premier said at a swearing-in ceremony for the new army chief, Major General Benny Gantz. We are ready for all eventualities because we know that the foundation of our existence and our capacity to convince our neighbors to live in peace with us is based on the Israeli army, he said during a ceremony at his Jerusalem office. I'd like to add, don't lean on your own understanding or trust in man, but Netanyahu, please trust in God, okay? I know he knows God. I've seen many of his quotes and what he says. I believe when he says he believes in God. Anyway, I wouldn't put that much faith in my army. I'd put, like I say, more faith in my God, who's far bigger than any army. But Netanyahu has a reason to be on edge with everything that's going on. Here's something out of Arutz Sheva. Secular Egypt opposition head says treaty with Israel is bad. The leader of the secular Al-Ghad opposition party in Egypt, Ayman Nawar, says that the peace agreement with Israel has ended and must be renegotiated. In practice, the Camp David Agreement of 1979, in which then-President Anwar Sadat made peace with Israel, has ended. Dr. Nawar told an interviewer on Sunday, because it is an old agreement and we must improve its conditions in a way that will correspond to Egypt's interests. The remarks are worrisome to Israel as they come from a leader of a non-Islamic party. The Tomorrow Party, in fact, was formed to represent a secular, liberal, democratic perspective with a strong interest in human rights issues and political reform. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's see what else we got going on. Oh, here's something. The Hamas chief says China and India to replace failing U.S. as superpowers. Says the U.S. empire is in decline and will fall because of the country's immorality, promotion of open sexuality, and political injustice, says Mahmoud al-Zahar, the chief of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. You know, for once, I have to agree with the man. He's pretty right. Well, we've turned away from God in this country, trying to take God out of everything, take prayer out of school. Yeah, look where that's getting us. Look where we're heading. Approving gay marriage goes against what God says. And again, I'm not judging. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just kind of giving an overview of why America is falling from God's grace. It's because we've turned from Him. So many have turned from God and turned to their own pleasure, their own chasing after what they want in this world without any thoughts to God. Just saying. I'm not going to read the rest of the story. It's rather lengthy, but he basically says America's going down. China and India are going to replace it as world superpowers. Who knows? He could be right. Okay, here's something out of Arutz Sheva. Iran blocks pre-rally internet sites. U.S. says Tehran is running scared. Okay, there's revolution fever returning to Tehran, where new and illegal protests are planned tomorrow as the United States charges Iran is scared of the will of its people. The regime of Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has already blocked several opposition websites, including one named Bahman, the 11th month of the Persian calendar, in advance of the planned rally today. Okay, they're having some issues over there. The Iranian people want Ahmadinejad out of there, and they're seeing what happened in Tunisia and Egypt, and they're going, hey, it worked for them, let's give it a shot. Probably not going to work quite so well in Iran, because they're a little more heavy-handed in Iran, and they won't put up with that kind of stuff for long. So you're probably not going to hear much about this story for another day or two when things start really heating up. But anyway, let's see what else is out there. Out of WorldNet Daily, Hamas chief declares U.S. empire will fall. Okay, it's pretty much the same as the last story I read. In decline because of immorality, promotion of open sexuality, homosexuality, political injustice. Okay, sorry, it's kind of a repeat there. Sorry, I know we're not into the summer reruns yet. So, speaking of Iran, this out of AOL News: police disperse Iranian protesters with tear gas. Clashes between Iranian police and tens of thousands of protesters racked central Tehran today as security forces beat and fired tear gas at opposition supporters, hoping to evoke Egypt's recent popular uprising. The opposition called for a demonstration Monday today in solidarity with Egypt's popular revolt that a few days earlier forced the president there to resign after nearly 30 years in office. The rally is the first major show of strength for Iran's cowed opposition in more than a year. Okay, but police are using tear gas, they're beating people, they're taking them to jail, and people are setting themselves on fire. Wow, it's amazing. Anyway, we'll see how that works out. Hope and pray that the Iranian people can make something good and positive happen in their country. Here's an odd story out of the dailymail.co. A weapon of mass destruction was found in the U.S. Shock confession of customs officers. Okay, we're talking about a nuclear bomb found in San Diego's port. Okay, I'm not going to read this whole story for time's sake, but the Customs and Border Protection Department tried to dampen speculation over these remarks, but he revealed a dirty bomb plot to attack the U.S. mainland is currently being investigated. Of course, San Diego would be a high target with naval ships and military bases nearby. So, we need to be on the watch for these kind of things. Okay, I'm doing a study on parables. I probably have about a month of parables I can probably do a study on. But this next one in Matthew 13, verse 24, Jesus said, another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like... Okay, I'm going to stop there. You know, there's an important truth about God's kingdom that Jesus wants to get across to you and I, his followers, and he used this parable to do it. Matthew 13, verse 24 through 26 says, a man sowed good seed in his field, but while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. Okay, so a man plants wheat in his field, but then an enemy sneaks into the field and plants tares or weeds along with the wheat. Both begin to grow, and it becomes apparent what happened. Now, let me just say, I grew up on a 2,000-acre farm. Farming was my life until I was about 21, so I know all about plowing and planting and harvesting. And you can't tell the difference between the wheat and the tares until they sprout fruit. Okay? Once again, referring to the passage, you'll know them by their fruit. I can't stress that enough. So this man's servants asked him if he wants to go through and pull the weeds out, and his answer is very insightful. He says, no, because then you might accidentally pull out some of the wheat. Let them both grow together, and at harvest time it will become easier to separate the two. It's in Matthew 13, 27 through 30. So what's that all about? You know, so since the two look similar as they're growing, then the head of wheat would become heavier than the weeds and would start to bend a little bit, making it far more distinguishable from the counterfeit. Okay? This is Jesus' point concerning the kingdom. Okay? Counterfeits are going to pop up from time to time. They look like the wheat, but they're really weeds. Now, I want to continue reading this one before I get further into this parable, because this is one of the parables that Jesus explains later. In Matthew 13, verse 36 through 43, then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came to him, saying, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said to them, he who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, Jesus. The field is the world, the good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one, the devil. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is at the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of this age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear. You know, when people talk about the rapture, this is one of the verses that makes me wonder about all these people that so firmly believe in a pre-trib. Jesus said at the end of the age, the wicked ones will be gathered first and thrown into the fire. Then the righteous will be gathered, and they'll shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. So the question then becomes, what is the end of the age? Is that the rapture, or is that the second coming of Christ? I'm not going to argue the point with you, because in actuality, none of us really know. And anyone who wants to argue and state firmly that this is the truth, I don't think they're arguing from the truth, but from their own pride or their own arrogance. But the point of this parable is Jesus telling you that counterfeits are going to pop up. They look like Christians. They look like the wheat, but they're really not. It's difficult to tell the difference at first, but time will reveal the differences between them and those who are the real deal. Like I said, you'll know them by their fruits. Our lesson in this is to be patient and observant, to know that we will encounter counterfeits, we will encounter false teachers, we will encounter false prophets, and even false Christs. Jesus told us this. But the best way to deal with them is to allow time to reveal them for what they truly are. Okay? There's a passage in Revelation that says this calls for patient endurance on the parts of the saints. That's you and I, guys. So, yes, there will be counterfeits. Okay? You'll know them by their fruits. Keep that in mind always. When someone tells you one thing, and you watch them do another. Okay? I pray that God will make us very observant of any counterfeits. I pray that He'll give us wisdom and discernment and guidance, that we may know the ravenous wolves in sheep clothing from our true brothers and sisters in Christ. And I pray that you will know the truth, because Jesus said if you know the truth, it will indeed set you free. God bless you. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Go out and have fun with your sweetheart tonight. And good Lord willing, I'll see you again tomorrow.